Hello, Motorrad World fans, and welcome to this very special live broadcast that we've put together for you tonight. Actually, arranged it during the week with Dom, who is AJ's better half, we can say, because obviously AJ has been traveling the world, well, not traveling the world, traveling the UK, pretty much getting himself set up for the Isle of Man TT. Started with the Northwest 200. But involved with that was a lot of in-between travel and favors and this and this and this. So to find the time to actually grab AJ and sit him down for an hour or so, as we're going to do tonight, and really just sorry, just pull his brain in terms of what happened at the Northwest and what's happening with the TT, and just catching up with AJ, because it's a massive undertaking for AJ, everyone involved. So it's something that I really wanted to do, but as is happening in the world these days, time just waits for no man, and you blink and a week, a month's gone. So I'm very glad we've been able to put this together. I really wanted to put this link up and start advertising this on Friday already. And then I was playing football with my son a couple of hours ago, missing live MotoGP, as you do when you're a dad. And I thought, shit, I'm doing a live chat with AJ tonight. So I'm very glad that you're all already tuned in to join us. Warwick Evans, evening Rob, can't wait for tonight's chat. These guys are insane. Warwick, absolutely right. It's going to be a great insight into everything that goes on, the behind the scenes, the everything, because we all just think, oh, lucky AJ, he's going to go ride the Northwest 200 and TT. What a lucky man, living the life, staying in 5-star hotels, and far from that. So we're going to give you a real nice insight there. Stephen Loxy always joins. Luca Jefferson always joins. George Hadji, how's it, Rob? AJ and Rob, all the best, the TT this year. Sean Clarson's happy birthday for the other day. Mariana Cronia, Beam Productions, Robbo, Beam Productions. Stay tuned to their page as well as AJ's page and the Lacquer Racing page and the Motorrad World page, because we'll bring you up to date with all the stuff there. Beam Productions very much handling AJ's social media account there. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. Chris Williams, Andrea Funenberg, Dominic Funnycak. Hello, Dominic Funnycak. Should be Dominic Fenter by now. But that's a whole nother video. It's coming soon. Daryl Holmes, Bradley Johnson, Tracy Lynn Fenter. I mean, there's another name. We've got to do a live interview with Tracy Lynn Fenter one day, because she'll have some stories to tell. There's no doubt about that. So thank you for joining us. As I said, without further ado, let's introduce the star of tonight's show, all the way from, I thought it was a sunny Isle of Man, because it's sunny where I am, and the UK is only about this big. But it's not sunny where he is. AJ Fenter, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Robbie. Good evening. Good everyone. Good evening to everyone back in South Africa. It's been a while since, I suppose, I've seen most of South Africa,
Yeah, you've missed a lot, AJ. We were talking off air just before we came on, and it's been a crazy last couple of weeks, month in the build up for this TT, and that's really what this talk is all about. Is just to get an insight into everything and how all this all goes, the putting together. Because as I said just before you came on, we from the outside it just looks like, oh, lucky AJ is going to go ride the TT, and he rode the Northwest, and geez, it must be so nice traveling the world in business class and staying in these fancy hotels and that. But it's far from it. So really going to just pick your brain and just try and get some kind of an idea of the challenges financially, time away from the family, the business, you run your own business, just get an insight of all that. So I really do appreciate you taking out the time, because I know it's been a hectic time for you traveling all over the place, but I think it's needed this. We'll definitely catch up during the TT as well, when you get the break, and afterwards as well. But I think in the build up, I think something like this is much needed to really get a kind of idea of what you actually go through. So starting from a couple of weeks back already, you for the first time made the trip over to the Northwest 200. So just give us a little bit of insight on how that all came about, your experience there, and just the challenges and the the ups and downs that you've gone throughout this time period.
So, Rob, yeah, it's been a mental. There's no other way to put it. It's been crazy. I know some of the guys at home, they know that I've been helping a young rider in the MotoGP paddock in the Red Bull Rookies, young KJ. So I went across to Jerez for their test. I was there for 2 days. Flew back to South Africa. I was back for a week, missed one weekend, and then we flew back for the MotoGP race there, round one, at Jerez. And then I'd left the Tuesday night, and obviously you travel Joburg, Munich, Seville, then you drive. It's about 100 k's up to Jerez, and then we were there for 4 days, and then you make the trip back, and then I was back home for 4 days, and then I had to jump on a plane, and we head Joburg, Heathrow, Belfast, and we jumped on the Northwest 200, and the Northwest for me was something special. I've always wanted to do it, and what stopped me doing it was the time away from home. As you know, as a lot of the South African guys know, or any of the riders that are riding in Europe, for us to do anything in our racing or race on any level competitive with the rest of the world, it's a long journey. It's a minimum 8 to 10 hour flight. So obviously running the shop at home, I had Dom putting the TT stuff together. I had my dad and Tristan and Dave and everybody running Lekker Racing, and I'm just running it off my phone where I can and as you jump on the Wi-Fi. But I had to go to the Northwest, and where it came about, I rode for a team, and I'm still riding for them now at the TT, called TH Racing. And it's run by some crazy but really, really good Irish people. And when I rode last year at the TT, I'm not sure if you remember, I rode the Wilson Craig Honda.
Yes.
And that was in the Supersport team. So these guys were involved with Wilson Craig. And at the end of last year, they grew themselves to a point where they went their own way. And Trev and another guy by the name of Willis Marshall, well-known name in Ireland, and good people, Rob, really, really good people. I actually rang Trevor to see if I could stay on that 600 for the TT for this year. And one of the reasons you do that is coming across to the TT, you want to try and get as much laps in as you can. So bringing your own bike helps you, but having to jump on other bikes as well, the more laps you do, because it's so much to take in, it's a 37-mile lap. So it's a 65-kilometer lap, 250, 300 corners. And, the only way to learn it is by building the mileage. So that was why I wanted to do it, So I phoned Trev in. We had a good TT last year. I did my fastest ever lap on the BM, which was 125.9 mile an hour. And on the 600 was 122 mile an hour. And, we left Jane in a very positive way and very happy. And it allowed me to want to, don't change your family doctor. If what works, let's keep going. So Trevor and them came back to me in November, and he said to me, listen, we've managed to put a deal together. This is where we're at. But it includes, we can run you at the Northwest and we can run you at the TT. So I sat down, put it on paper, and I said to Dom and my dad, you got to confide in the people that make it happen. And I'm not getting any younger, and this is, I think, my 8th or 9th year at the TT, and I'd like to do the Northwest. I've always wanted to do the Northwest, but what has limited me was 5 weeks away from home.
Yeah.
And now I sit in a position, and obviously the cost of it, we'll get to the cost now, but realistically, five weeks is a long time. And what makes it harder is 5 weeks having a business. When I lived in the UK, I'd wake up in the morning, ride my bicycle and race motorbikes. Now you wake up in the morning and it's Lekker Racing and it's school fees and my son's riding, and there's a lot more things you've got to sort of stay on top of.
Yeah.
And so my dad even said the same thing. We've got a really good motorbike, a really good team, and I'll be stupid to turn it down. Let's bite the bullet. Let's make it happen. So I rang Trev and I said, Trev, let's do it. Let's jump on the 600. So that's sort of how quick that deal got put together. They then, by starting their own team, bought a Super Twin. So they have a Super Twin machine as well, which allowed me to ride both bikes. We didn't take the BM to the Northwest. Going there as a newcomer to jump on 1,000 straight away, I think is I learned my lesson, coming to the TT, jumping on 1,000 straight away. So, and also to get the logistically, it was costing us enough to get the BM to the TT. To add it onto the Northwest would just make it difficult. So anyway, jumped on a plane. They fetched me from the airport, and as I landed in Belfast, I got a call from a good friend of mine who from the UK that we were going to stay with, and he wasn't well, so he wasn't able to make it to the Northwest, and that was my accommodation. So I sort of rang Trev. I said, we need to make a plan. So I ended up staying in the caravan with Trevor. He opened his doors, he opened his family to me. I stayed at his house. It's something the South Africans, we do it as South African people, but there's people out there in the world that also, they open their doors to, and this team have given me a bike to ride, but they've also given me a place to stay. And so they took me around Ireland, and they took me to all the places that we've seen on the internet. I went to the Joey Dunlop, that bar, Joey's Bar.
Yes.
They just drive you around, and they make you feel so welcome. I went to the Ulster Grand Prix. We drove around that track. So all of that stuff sort of took the time. We then got to the Northwest, and I missed, at the beginning of the year, they do a launch. You're for the Northwest, and the newcomers all fly across. They put you in a bus, and they teach you, and they help you. And being so far away from Ireland and visas and things like that, I didn't make that.
Yeah.
So the first time I saw the Northwest 200 was when I got there 2 days before practice. We jumped in. One of the guys in the team, his dad, I met him at the grandstand at 6 a.m, and we jumped in the car and we did a couple of laps. And to be honest with you, it's a completely different perspective to what you would think on TV. It's a lot faster than you think. It's a lot bumpier than you think. And it's not the TT. I'll give you that. And in your head, you want to say it's quite straightforward to learn. But the thing with the roads is no road race is easy to learn, because the minute you think it's easy, your mind gets lazy and you make a mistake, and mistakes can have big consequences. So basically, being involved with these guys at the Northwest, they made my journey easy. The bikes were fantastic. We didn't first night's practice. Believe it or not, I went out behind Steve Plater he's the newcomer rider liaison officer. So for insurance, you go out and you do 5 laps behind Steve Plater. And on the second lap, I got a stone through the radiator. Obviously, because it's a public road. So we came in, went out for first practice. We put practice on the radiator to fix it. I did 1 lap to see if it was still leaking, and we had a slight weep. Came back in, and the team, they did everything they can, and we got 2 laps in. So that put a time in for me. Then we jumped on the Super Twin, and we had a couple of small little things that stopped us before we went out. We had to do an engine change, and got on the bike, went out, and that Super Twin was also a missile, absolute missile. And just a funny thing, when and I helped with it, so I can even hold the blame, changing that engine. We didn't cable tie the clutch cable to the frame, and I came into the town, I'm not sure the corner, but it's a town where you come into a village, close the throttle, and the throttle jammed open because it got stuck behind the throttle bodies, and it's not ideal. It's not really what you want to do there. But what it did do, though, was it makes it difficult in qualifying, because every lap you're going quicker. So as a newcomer, the faster you go, the higher you qualify.
Yes.
And the way the Northwest 200 works is it's a mass start. So picture yourself at Red Star. They split the group in half. I think it was 5 rows at a time. So the first 5 rows go, and then they have a 30-second delay, and the second 5 rows go.
Yes.
And the trick to the Northwest, because it's slipstreaming all the time, and it's a Moto 3 race, and that for me was the best thing in the world. I got to the end of that back straight, and I was absolutely flat in 6th gear, and there was 5 of us abreast. And I was laughing in my helmet, because I've watched that video so many times, and now I'm living it,
Yeah.
And I was looking at the guy next to me racing. He didn't want to look at me, and I was looking at him because I was laughing, because I was like, yes, man, it's the best place in the world. And so what helped me with the Super Twin is I got away with the front pack.
Yes.
So you can get in the slipstream. With the 600, I qualified in the second pack. Okay. So the first race, I got a good start. I think I was about 4th of that pack into turn 1. And you play chess. You can be the fastest person in the world, but the difference between a slipstream and no slipstream is 10 k's an hour. So I had 4 fantastic races, and I really, really enjoyed it. The team were very happy. We ended up fastest newcomer, so that we got a nice award. And it was for me, it was good for the team, because it was their first time, their first opportunity, and because we were a newcomer and we got a bit of publicity, and they got rewarded for the effort they put in. I mean, we went through 3 radiators, right? a radiator is 1,500 pounds. It's 30,000 rand. They didn't hesitate. They literally, I still said, coming from South Africa, I said, guys, put Bradley's. Let's seal it.
Yeah.
You know, they said, this is a public road, AJ. You know, you're right, but we can't afford those problems, you know. So, yeah, the Northwest for me, I absolutely loved it. If I can tell the other guys that race at home, it's something they should do. It is something to consider because, you know, we race small bikes and we slipstream. And if you like that racing, it's proper pure racing.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I love motorcycles and I love motorcycle race. And knowing that you were doing it, I thought, right, let me do my education here. And I watched a couple of those videos, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever. And that's what makes what you're doing even more spectacular. I mean, we've spoken about it so many times. Like you said, the Isle of Man is one thing. That Northwest 200 to me is just as grueling. It's manic. It's manic. Anyway, let's just quickly go back a second there, because that was also something I really wanted to speak about. Is, you know, on top of everything that you're doing this supporting as you know, a mechanic or crew chief or whatever you like with KJ Monyanyane. You've now been to the MotoGP, modern day MotoGP, in that kind of environment, in that you know, that spectacle that is MotoGP these days. Give us a little bit of insight into that with KJ and the Red Bull rookies. You know, what do you actually do? How much input you have in fixing the bike and setting the bike up for him, and just being in that atmosphere, seeing Brad. And, you know, I've always said in our Talking MotoGP shows that when you're there on those race weekends, it's a completely different picture to what we see on the TV. You know, you hear things, you see things. We just see Brad and KTM struggling, and it's, you know, it's easy to be a couch warrior on the outside, but in that environment, it's a completely different world.
Rob, you 100% right, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because something that I really, really want to get off my chest. And I left the UK, call it 10 years ago, and there was a system that the riders, that the general consensus of what it takes to ride in Europe, how you train, how you prepare, and how you attend these events. You know, and I knew Brad Binder in 2009 when Brad was doing Red Bull Rookies, and it's a 10-year, 12-year gap that I now arrive at Jerez and I arrive at this MotoGP event expecting a similar thing to what we used to. And I promise you now, we are so far behind, okay, as a country, as South Africa, as in our racing and at the level that these guys are riding at. And I promise you now, I had dinner with Brad the one night, and I eventually said to him, you know, Brad, I don't know how you live two lives. You know, I said, now that I've been there and I've experienced it, and I watch the pressure that these guys work under, and the amount of things, you know, the minute we got there, myself and KJ was walking around starstruck, you know, which it was actually quite cool, because it was like this new kid. He could identify more riders than I've ever seen. You know, he's like, AJ, there's Luca Marini, let's take a photo, and there's this guy, and I wouldn't even know what they look like, but, you know, KJ was living that dream of an aspiring kid, you know. And we walked past Brad's pit, and by chance, Brad was coming out. And he stopped, and, you know, as everyone knows, the Binder's the best with everyone. You know, they can sit and have that conversation. And they took us into the garage. And they introduced us to every mechanic, every people, you know, and we could see what they do. And let me tell you something, there's more people looking at computers and data. And this guy does brakes. And now that's all these little things is where one person has to deal with 300 plus horsepower around this racetrack, you know, and he's trying hard, you know, and all these people are trying hard. So when he has a good day and he has a bad day, I don't always believe it's the rider. I believe it's the package, and it's, you know, they've got to live such a commercialized life of what they can say, what they can't say, you know, and on days when things go wrong, I believe, and it's just because it's my personal opinion, some days it's not, call it Brad's fault, you know, but Brad takes it on the chin because he's the guy behind the handlebars.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So that level for me was unbelievable. And another kid, Rushan Woodley, you know, Rushan, you know, I got there and as a kid, you know, I used to run around and pick snot out my nose, and you and Shares and, you know, you guys are the national guys at Kalomi. And now I get to Jerez, and, you know, I bump into Arushan, and I'm still looking at Arushan like, you know, he's who he is, you know. And, you know, I've experienced, I knew Roche riding around Polokwane on a little KTM 50 and a 65. I promise you, the South Africans need to support these kids. You know, the level is unbelievable. And the last thing that they need is the negativity, if there is any that comes from home. You know, the Spanish, I mean, we're sitting in this Red Bull rookie tent, and each rider, how it works is you got a rider plus a helper. And your job is to look after that bike. You then get a mechanic that you work under, that's part of Red Bull, and he looks after 5 of you. So there's 5 bikes, and he'll come to you, and if there's something a lot more technical, he would come to you and say, okay, you need to do this, we need to do that. You know, they have a notice board in the middle of the session, so you come in and they'll prep you and they'll say, right, end of the session, take the wheels out, put these wheels in, put them in this rack, put fuel in the bike, take the fairings off, clean the bike. You know, and they give you a list of things. You have your own toolbox, you have your own generator, you have your own tire warmers, and it's very to the book, you know. And, you know, I watched Riche get on that Red Bull Rookies bike, and the kid's hauling. It's unreal how these guys are riding. And then the problem is there's 10 of them. I mean, the one race, he dropped down to 8th, saved his tires, got up to 2nd, got punted in the last corner, and he dropped back. But I'd never really seen Riche like that, you know. And all of a sudden, you're there, and the kid is phenomenal. And while you're sitting in this Red Bull Rookies tent, Pedro Costa came from Rookies. He walks in there, and he comes and chats with the kids, but they chat with the Spanish, you know. And so the South Africans, it's not that they alienated there. I mean, everybody gets on with everyone, but, you know, you're not in your local town. So the encouragement you need, and having worked with KJ now, where, you know, I don't want to tread on toes there as a rider, but at the same time, I'm sitting in a different chair. You know, I could put myself in that position when I used to race a motorbike, and the things I battled with and the things I love. You know, I mean, something as simple as the night before the race, we're on our way back to the hotel, and it's me and KJ, and I said to him, listen, it's early morning tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Let's stop at the shop. Let's get some breakfast, because, you know, at the hotel you eat at 7. We need to be at the track at 6. KJ goes into the shop. He comes out with 2 chocolates. But I was the same. You know, you don't know about your diet. You don't know about and having someone to drive in the car and just run through data and run through, you know, what I would do. They have their rider coaches, you know, but it's difficult. He's in another country. He's by himself. You know, he's in a little rider academy. But you miss your friends, you know, that he's 16, 17 years old, when, you know, most 16-year-olds, you know, they go ride bicycle on a weekend, and they play online gaming, and, you know, these kids are living motorbike racing, and there's only that very, very, very fine few that will get through, you know. And if you look at the level that they're at, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like you were saying, I think it's that familiarity that South Africans lack. You know, the Spanish, the French. It's, you know, even me based in the UK now, you're 2 hours and not a hell of a lot of financial commitment compared to SA away from anything. You know, if I want to now hop on, if Arushan phoned me and said, listen, Rob, I can't make the next race, please can you go look after Riche? It's a 2-hour flight for me and £100 ticket. It's doable. You know, for South Africans, as you said, with KJ, Brad went through it. You know, we know the story of Brad, and Trevor was away from Sharon for so long, and, you know, that disjointed nature. And as you said, there's KJ. If he didn't have you and he had to deal with a foreign kind of mechanic or someone, how do you feel comfortable, and how do you fully perform when you're out of your comfort zone? So it's that familiarity. The Spanish can have their aunts, their uncles, their dogs, their cats, everyone come with, because, you know, Europe is South Africa. It's like you going from Joburg to Cape Town. You can do it. You can be there and do it. So I think that's the biggest thing that takes its toll, you know, and certainly knowing the Brad and Darren story, and seeing it now, and speaking to Arushan, and, you know, Arushan and them have done it the best way possible, and that's literally uplift the whole family. And they, you know, the sister and the mother travel with in this van, and they drive the hours and hours to go be with, you know, Dad and Riche doing their thing, sitting at the racetrack all weekend. You know, might not necessarily be their thing, but they are to support. So I think we do take it for granted sometimes. You know, we do look at it, you know, South Africans, and, you know, I'll put my hand up, and I'm one of them. Back in the day, you kind of used to see you racing over in the UK or something and go, oh, what a lucky bastard, you know, geez, why is it not me? KJ, oh, he's so lucky. Yeah, you know, he's got money and he gets to go over and do that. He's so lucky. Yeah, but it's as you said, when I was 16, 17, I was chasing girls and, you know, going to shows and playing in bands and, you know, living life. These guys, and as you said, because we're not equipped in South Africa, it's, you know, exactly like what you said, KJ will go into the shop and buy 2 chocolates. In Spain, from 7 years old or whatever, 5 years old, this is a profession. So they're starting to train already. You know, our short circuit youngsters, they're good and they're fast. They're not training 4 hours a day and riding bicycles. They're not eating proper diets, So it's a different culture that we come from. And then when you're taken out of this comfort zone culture that's South Africa, put into this, right, there's no more comfort zone here. You've got to perform. Because if you don't perform, you go home. Or there's another Spaniard or another Italian or another Australian. There's another person ready to take your place. So if you don't perform, just piss off. So we forget that, and sometimes I've got to slap myself today watching Brad and seeing that frustration of another bad result. You go, oh, gee. You've got to slap yourself. And that's what I talk about, being in that environment. It's easier to see the bigger picture and understand it more once you've been there to witness that. Even Brad, all these years that he's been in there now, he's got Courtney really as his only, Courtney and Darren, although he never gets to see Darren. This weekend he had some other friends, Clinton Lehman from the scooter shop, Vespa South Africa. Basically those kind of comforts can make such a big difference when you're racing overseas. Same with you now, as you've got Lourdre, Martinez, your dad, having that familiarity. You were talking about being involved with the same team now, again heading in to have that consistency of going into another TT with the same faces, the same bike in many ways in that 600, your BM. It paints a completely different picture as going into it first time. Right, I don't have my dad, I don't have Martinez, I don't have Lourdre, I don't have this familiar faces. You kind of just cramp yourself up and you can't really express yourself.
100%, Rob. And let me tell you something, and we relate to Brad and we relate to Darren. And let me tell you something else that stuck out for me. So KJ, how it works with the Red Bull rookies, when you go out for a session, you push your trolleys out and they work from pit lane. So you park in front of the MotoGP garages. And by chance, the stars lined up that we literally parked outside Brad's KTM garage, and KJ went down, he crashed in second qualifying at a massive 50 eyesight. And he hurt himself. And so that night we're having dinner and he's chatting with Brad, and Brad, Brad gives him the time. He says, KJ, how was your day? He says, I had a big crash. He dismisses a crash like that in the sense of you can't worry about, yes, you crashed, granted. At home, when you crash, you go, it's going to cost me. What am I going to do? My dad's already sold this and we've done that. And financially, at that level, Brad just says, if you crashed, you crashed. Tomorrow's another day. He doesn't give up. And mentally you've got to be so strong. And KJ crashed again in the race, but this time he got taken out. And Brad said to him, how was the race? He says, I got taken out. He says, don't worry, focus on the next round. Put it behind you, And I can side when I see like the likes of Daz. Daz is struggling. Daz isn't struggling because he's not trying hard. There's no lack of effort,
sure.
And the hardest thing is to keep yourself going. So the South Africans need to back them, and something else you mentioned with the short circuit guys and the training and that, I speak to KJ probably every second day, and sometimes it's not even about racing, but it's just, hey KJ, what's happening? How are you doing? I hope you're training. We joke. He sends me who runs the furthest. He sends me his Strava pictures that he's put a run in today or he's put a cycling in, then I'll send him one if I've run, because I'm still riding a little bit. I can also run with him. I can train with him. And you can push them, because it's just giving them that comfort of when you come in and you've had a bad day, there's nothing worse. And I experienced it in the UK where you'll come in, you sit in your camper van and you've qualified 27th, you 0.9 off pole, 0.9 of a second off pole. But on paper, you 27th, you got no one to speak to, you got no one to, and you got to keep your head in the game, and then when the game's good, everybody's there. And when the game's bad, they say, guys, what's happened today? And Jack Miller, and something else I noticed, same thing chatting with Brad. They never have a bad thing to say about anyone. First thing Brad said at Jerez, because remember he crashed 2 bikes, I think, or 3 bikes over the weekend. And we were sat eating and it was like 9 o'clock and he's like, what, I feel so shit for my mechanics. So I said, what do you mean? He says, they're rebuilding the bike now. He says they have to change the frame. Because they were running a carbon frame, one crash it may have a cracking. He sat in his head going, my team, my guys, that's his now family that back him are working till 2 a.m, And one of the things that stuck out for me was this is my 8th, I always get confused, 8th or 9th TT, but my 2nd TT of riding my own bike.
Yes.
And last year was the best TT I've ever had. I went from 122 mile an hour to 125.9, which was a big chunk. And
Yes.
potentially we had small little hiccups, which we didn't know. But what worked for me was I was in the comfort of my own people. I had my own bike. And, I didn't have to question one thing and come and say, hey, guys, is the handlebars tight? Is the calipers tight? And having come back to the TT this year, I feel like I pulled the 80, and I have to have the people around me that I trust. And the biggest sacrifice, which makes me appreciate it more, is the guys are giving up their time. Road racing in 2 weeks. So these guys, Martinez runs big Kawasaki dealership in Boxburg. Saki's works at BMW. My dad's running Lacquer Racing. Dom's leaving Lacquer Racing. Jim's coming from the UK. So all these guys are giving up 2 weeks of work for no money, and they're coming to give me support and help to make this event happen. And mentally it puts you in the right frame of mind that tomorrow when I go down Grey Hill, I'm on the best package I could have, and I have the best people around me that I could have.
Yeah, and that you can't put a money value on that in many ways. And I think that's, especially as a South African, that's the most important thing that I think we don't have the luxury of always having, going overseas and doing what all you guys do. Sven Grinner also says, never mind having to learn the tracks and the culture and everything. It's a big undertaking for all South Africans, and that's why myself and Motor Rider World, we've always done everything we can to try and expose as much of the South Africans going and doing this kind of thing, because I don't think people really see it as the undertaking it is. We just see it as, oh, lucky them, they're getting to do it. So yeah, it's brilliant what you guys are doing. Johnny Martins, it's called Passion for the Sport, Rob. Absolutely, Johnny. And it is, face it, it's a sport of fractions. Absolutely. Sparky Bright, AJ, you are a good mentor to many, bud. Sparky, from the PE circuit, Aldous Scribante, one of the greatest circuits in the entire world. That's one of the probably in the top 5 things I miss most about South Africa is racing around Aldous Scribante. So AJ, let's jump over to TT then. You've just arrived there. You're kind of getting yourself set up. There's already been a couple of spanners in the works talking to you before we came live on air. But it's not been smooth sailing in terms of preparation, sponsors, and everything. So just give us a brief outline of who's involved with the team. I know you got some really good sponsors on, but at the last minute, some sponsors dropped, and you've really had to do the old South African way and pull the duct tape up and zip ties and try and patch things up where you can.
Yeah, Rob, it has been a bit of a whirlwind, if you want to call it that. And I think what made it also a bit hard was a lot of the stuff I was doing from here, or from Ireland or from Jerez, and putting my trust in the people at home to make it happen. But so the TT, I'm riding my BM. A bit of background: the BMs come from Santon BMW, from Lerdre, Saki. Between Saki and my dad, they put the bike together, they built it, and we had a deal in place with Skynet, and Skynet put the bikes in the crate and they sent it across. Obviously, due to the economy, they weren't in a position to fulfill the full distance of getting the bike up and down. So we had to, and that came about last minute. It came about 2 weeks before we had to fly. So all in one day, I got a phone call that we needed to try and find the money to ship the bike across. For the guys that want to know, it was.
And this is all in pounds, eh?
Yeah. So this was in a rand conversion. It's 150 grand, 170 grand. We had to find within 2 weeks. We had a deal in place through sponsors for the tires, and that also, it was a paper trail. Wow, but that didn't materialize, and sort of we got knowledge of it last minute. So it sort of left us with about a 200 to 300 grand hole that we needed to fill. Which, if I can give Motor Rider World and every single person in South Africa in the racing, that they came to the go-karting, they came to the golf days. There's a good friend of ours, everyone knows Richie van der Walt, and Richie got Menno Parsons on the phone, and Master Power Technologies, and Menno rang and he said, listen, AJ, we want to be involved with you, and we want to use you to promote our company. And I had Menno on board as a sponsor already, and then Richie picked the phone up, rang Menno and said, listen, Menno, we might have an issue with the shipping of the bike. And Menno's like, we can't allow that, Menno stepped up to the plate and he made it happen. So a massive, massive thank you to Menno. I had another sponsor also drop out last minute with quite a big bit of money, and I get another friend of mine, Howie from Truvine. I run the ZX10 with him at home in ZX10 Cup. Howie just phoned and said, AJ, let me help you out and we'll sort it out later. So all the guys, Spaniard, South Africa, Spaniard got involved. Paul Dreyer from Wing Promotions, he got involved. Augustine. A lot of guys will see. There's a very, very, very good friend of mine that we go racing with, Guy Milcrest, that runs the 45. Guy put a big challenge out to all the bike clubs and said, he challenged and Guy's someone with a lot of respect in those biking circles, and to have someone like him put that out there. There was one or two of the 45's members that I don't know, Rob. And the guy forwarded me the WhatsApp. He says, I don't know AJ at all, but if he's one of us, we need to help him. And the guy transferred some decent money into our account, So, that all worked out. And then, Ryan from Autocycle, Ryan Robertson, and Ryan's backed me from the RI days, and he does my HJCs, and same thing. We do the golf days, and Dom rang Ryan, and Ryan will never, ever, ever turn down that opportunity, and he's always been there to help us. So Ryan sorted out my helmets. He sorted out the chains, the brake pads, the Premier pads and the Regina chains. Keaton Murray put the mass suit stuff together for me. Beam Productions, yourself, getting the mileage out. I can have all these sponsors, but if I've got no one pumping the sponsors out there, you can waste your time, So that's where Motor Rider World, and so all the South Africans, and then, we're involved in this MRSSA. And I've got a lot of customers from my shop, from Lekker Racing, and the amount of just friends and family that have just put their phone and said, listen, AJ, we need to help you. And it's people you would never expect. So that's why I always say, a big, big, big thank you to the racing community for putting it together. And then, I know I'm going to get crucified, but Dom really put a lot of work in here, and one of the jokes we have is, I made a deal with Dom. Let's go to the TT and we'll get married. And this is, I think, the 9th TT, and I'm still not married. So it's getting, it's bad when the organizers at the sign-on office at the TT are like, AJ, you need to, Dom's coming here next week. She needs to go on holiday. Martinez phoned me 2 weeks ago, and he's like, AJ, if you don't take Dom for dinner or something, we can have a conversation. So, it's been a lot. Johnny Cricker. Johnny, he's got a lot of things on at home at the minute with work and things like that, but he's making the journey. I'm sure he's going to appear at some stage, but, that's Ultimate Fitness, making sure we fit. So it's a big package, It
is. And, living in the UK now for 2 years, just over 2 years, that's one thing, it's hard. South Africa, I didn't want to leave South Africa, but in many ways we're forced out of South Africa, especially with Nova and the situation. And we all know the reasons, but you can never, it never ceases to amaze me, the support that South Africa gets. If I look at Nicole doing, we're going to have a chat with Nicole with her women's international championship that she's taking part in. I'll be at Donington where she's going to race, hopefully going to do coverage there. Rian van Rensburg, as he says, Cam Peterson, Matthew Scholz in Moto America. We've spoken about you. We've spoken about KJ, Rushane Moodley, Brett Roberts. There's so many of you guys, and South Africa does in times of need, and in such in an environment that it's hard to sometimes live yourself. It's hard. People always ask me this side, why did you leave South Africa? And I just I was surviving in South Africa. I wasn't living in South Africa. It was hard to live with my family in South Africa, especially with what we were dealt with. But despite all that, as you said, companies, and a big shout out to Paul Dreyer from Wing Promotions. If anyone needs caps, shirts, any kind of promotional items done, Wing Promotions. You were talking about Mastercard. I mean, that guy's been sponsoring all of our. We've all had some of his money at some course in our racing careers. It's just amazing how everyone comes together, and that's what keeps the South African in me, and that's what keeps me, my brother, Beam Productions. I know Beam Productions don't make a lot of money, if any, out of a lot of things they do. And a lot of people don't. You do a lot of things that you don't make money out of. Ricky Martinez, Lourdre. We've all been in these situations where we don't make money, but you know what? It's for a good cause, and, let's pull together and do it. So it's great that you've had the support. But, I think the biggest sponsor, AJ, you have to admit, the biggest sponsor you have is probably me with my Tesco's card. that's going to save you the most amount of money.
I'm not sure if the phone's been ticking because we've been there 3 or 4 times, and I don't know who eats more, Martinez or Lurde, but that card's working overtime.
Now, Dom's put a smiley face here. Now, I don't know if it's that sarcastic smiley face, like, ha ha ha, yeah, AJ, hurry the F up, or if it's but listen, Dom amazes me. Dom's just, all women in my eyes are superheroes, because I look at Amy, my wife, and the things that she can do with her. They're built differently than us men. Some of us can multitask like you can fix bikes and you can ride them and go fast and do stupid things. I could just ride them, I couldn't fix them, but our women are just able to do crazy things. Craig Hicks, everyone needs a Tesco lunch meal deal. Craig, you're absolutely right. So AJ, quickly, the talk over here, now that I'm very much in the motorcycle industry here in the UK, is the TT's days and the Northwest 200 days are numbered. We know the Northwest was cancelled, insurances, the roads, the bikes are becoming faster, the roads, the public. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration here now. And big talk here in the UK is that the TT's got, potentially another 5-year kind of lifespan. Is that also kind of a factor that you're taking into consideration of, you don't know, at any point it could be called off, so not only you aging, which I don't think is as much of a problem, because I think you can do the TT at whatever age, but you want to do it kind of while you're still in your prime and while you're at your best. But is it a case of time's ticking on these events, so let's make the best of them while they're happening?
Yes and no, Rob. The Northwest, I want to say, I mean, the event ran and everything was cool, but there's a lot of the insurance in Northern Ireland is a big problem at the minute. And obviously, having stayed there with the team and driven around, the Ulster Grand Prix is no longer. They lost the Ulster Grand Prix, they lost Kells, they lost Tandragee, they lost the Temple. I had to, when I got to the North, and this was also something that I didn't factor in the budget at the time, but it's a necessity at the end of the day, and it is what it is, was due to the insurance and coming from the EU, I had to pay, I think it was 35,000 Rand as your insurance cover just to take part in the Northwest. You come across to the TT and it's a different insurance cover, you pay another 35. So my insurance cover is sitting on about 70 grand that you outlay to make sure you have that sufficient cover. And why I'm saying that is the premiums for the insurance are very high. Yeah. And it's due to the cover. And because the premiums are so high, it's making the event difficult to run. And it's something I spoke to the Irish TH Racing team about, because obviously they've got nowhere to ride. So they're now having to race in the UK at Oliver's Mount, or they go to, there's a track in Wales, I can't remember the name, but it's also a bit of a road race that they're going to. And Ireland went from being the road race capital of the world of all these events to having Mondello Park in the Northwest 200. So yes, that is in doubt. And I think 2 years ago, the Northwest was virtually cancelled, and it took the riding guys to resurrect it, Mm-hmm. TT, I want to say yes, I want to say no. For the simple reason, it brings in so much money to the economy, to the Isle of Man, to the island. The population probably doubles or triples, of influx of people that come here, they spend money. Yes, you can see when you walk through the town, you can see that it's taking its toll, the cost of living. So it's not only expensive in South Africa, but the cost of living in the UK. I don't drink alcohol, I don't drink beer, but the guys are paying £7 for a beer. Yeah. I remember when I was in the UK, it was 2-3 quid back then. I watched the price of fuel, the price of diesel. Things are getting expensive. Obviously, with this weather scenario that flattened the pits 2 days ago, I was sat chatting to Bruce Baker, one of the organisers, and Bruce was saying, their hands are cut. So they get a lot of abuse on social media that, people should be paying this and they should be getting this and the government should be doing. Their hands are cut from above them, but they're the guys putting the effort. Milky Quayle is supposed to be a rider liaison officer that doesn't just put a tracksuit on and drive you in a car. He's out at night and he's busy doing laps with people, and they're putting barriers up and branding. And so the TT, what they are going to do, which a talk I heard, I'm not sure how true it is that they want to start restricting the bikes and capping the TT to a point where, because soon in the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to have 140 mile an hour lap, and that is, 130 mile an hour lap, stupid, and now they're doing 135, 136. So I was chatting to someone the other day, quite well known, and one of the things that had come up was to do away with 1,000 cc's and sort of reel everyone back to a 600 class and make like a 600 Evo class and a smaller class, and that would just keep the speeds to a reasonable level to prolong the TT. Just because where's it going to end? How far is it going to go? Do you remember the electric bikes? The electric bikes came and they went. They went because it was a money thing and it was a safety thing. There was a big fire in the pits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see the TT carry on because it's 100 and a few years of history. But yes, it is good that I can proudly say I've done Macau Grand Prix, which is also an Australian scenario, but Macau Grand Prix, the Northwest, the TT, and then obviously your Manx Grand Prix.
Yeah, you've pretty much ticked a lot off that bucket list, which is very impressive. Talking about kind of the happenings and the weather, I was talking about it before we came on air. You're telling me, I've got this beautiful sunshine, a little bit of rain, but we've had this beautiful weather, and this place is a different world when the sun's shining. The people are different, everything's just different. But it's not necessarily been the case there by you. There's been some big problems for the event, kind of with the weather that's happened.
So, Rob, they've had torrential rain. We got you today's Sunday. I got you Wednesday on the boat. Thursday, we wanted to set up and we didn't for the simple reason because it rained. It rained Wednesday, it rained Thursday. We set up Friday. And on that Wednesday, Thursday, it flooded. So there was a couple of guys that had come in early, some of the European teams, and their gazebos got ripped to pieces. The glamping sites where the spectators, they're like holiday camping sites, those tents got flattened. The holding cell, all those tents there, they got ripped. Honda UK's hospitality unit got ripped up. So it's been mad the last couple of days with the weather, and they now, obviously we're watching the weather tonight. There's supposed to be quite a bit of rain, and the problem with that is, remember, we're riding on a public road, so it doesn't dry up as fast as what you would. And obviously in the rain, there's a lot more reasons why we don't go out in the rain like they used to, with the helicopter not being able to fly, the mist on the mountain, wet tires, they don't last a full lap, and obviously the safety aspect. So we're supposed to be out tomorrow morning at, I think, 10 o'clock, 10:40. We've got the solo newcomers are going out, and if we have big rain tonight, it's going to delay that. So they basically just said to us, guys, the weather this year is going to be mixed. We're going to have good days and bad days, and you just got to fit it in. It might not be ideal, but if the weather's not ideal, I don't see them breaking lap records. But it's the TT at the end of the day, so anything can happen. Everybody wants to see everyone go fast, but you could be standing in Douglas in the grandstands at the pits, and it could be sun shining. You then get to the back end of Kirk Michael, and it's absolutely freezing cold and misty. So, the weather is playing a couple of games, and everyone's hoping for dry, because obviously the more saddle time you get, the safer your TT goes, and the more familiarized you've got. You're not condensing 3 laps. You don't do 3 laps of practice and going into a race. You can try and get 10 laps in. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but you're only getting 2, maybe 3 laps a night. And you want that. You want as much as you can.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It's not like missing out 5-10 laps at a Red Star Raceway. This is, as you said, 65 Ks, so every lap, every corner kind of counts. Realistically, AJ, obviously with the weather happening, let's hope for best conditions and pure sunshine and ideal situations. So I suppose we've got 2 areas to look at here. Realistically, your goals for this TT, on an ideal day, you were 125, as you said, almost 126 last year. On an ideal day, what is the realistic target that you're looking for? And then obviously, weather dependent and whatever else, we can't really put any kind of expectation on that, because just finishing in those kind of conditions is the thing. But what are your realistic expectations coming into this TT?
So the thing with me, Rob, especially with the road racing thing, it's difficult to sit and go, I want to do 128 mile an hour. I set that 125 goal because I didn't think it was difficult for me. When I did the 122, I felt like I was bouncing off the edges. So if you don't set those goals, you'll never chase it. And that was where I made that 125. And there was, I think by the second night of practice, I'd come in at 124.8. And I said to my dad, obviously he's my data technician, and he brings up the laptop and we start going through stuff. And I said to him, Dad, I don't feel like I'm on the limit, and I don't feel that, I do think I'll go through that 125 a lot sooner than I expected. And I did. And the problem is, the faster you go, the more scared you get. You know what I mean? And towards the end, I started doing these lap times, and they moved me up the grid. I was supposed to go off at 43, and I think they moved me up a little bit. And this year, my start number, I've been moved up to 30. Realistically, once you've done 125 mile an hour lap, to start chipping away from 125 to 126 to 127, you're not just going to go through Balagary flat out tonight and find 2 mile an hour. I was driving in the car this morning with a guy by the name of Sean Anderson, who is racing the Team Classic Suzuki, where I've been the last week before the TT. And Nathan, that runs Classic Suzuki, he introduced me to Sean, and we jumped in Nathan's car, and he was kindly enough for Sean to take me for a lap and give me a few markers. Sean did 130 mile an hour lap last year. And it was very interesting to see that I know the course, and you always think you know that course, but he had markers that were just that 20 meters deeper into a turn than me. And the problem you have as a racer is, how fast can you go into a corner? And if you get to Redstone, you get to the end of the straight, you miss your brake marker, you run straight. Yeah. You don't want to go to Ginger Hall and run wide, because it's not ideal. So what do I want to get out of this year? Ideally, I want to beat that 125. Yeah. By how far, I don't know. However, we had a lot of hiccups last year that stopped us in our overall race result, where we lost time in the pits that we didn't know. We had the wrong battery in the bike. So the bike came in, we did a pit stop, did a wheel change, and the engine wouldn't crank. That battery didn't have enough cranking power to start the engine. So instead of a 55-minute pit stop, it was a minute 30. So that caps your total. It's a total race time. We came in for a wheel change, and the first wheel change, well, sucky, we didn't have captive spacers and a quick release system. We had a stock standard BMW S1000RR that we manually changed the wheel. And the first pit stop, the spacers fell out. So you lose time. Come the senior, we had, Saki got the best pit stop, that some of the bigger teams were clapping because they'd never seen this tough Afrikaans from the West End holding this wheel with no gloves on. They even called him asbestos hands, So my biggest thing is to improve on all that where we lost out last year, and the majority was in the pits. And then same with the 600. I did 118 on the 600 last year, and I wanted to beat 120. I took a bet with one of the mechanics, and I walked over the 122 mile an hour. And something else I want to give credit to the TH Racing guys was, I got to the Northwest 200, and before I could say anything, Trevor and Willis said, like, AJ, we don't care where you finish. As long as you come back safe, we do this because we enjoy it, not because we're expecting you to win. Because going out there in the back of your mind going, it's cost me a lot of money to come here, it's a lot of sacrifice, I have to get that result. It also works against you, because you ride with that pressure. You need to, unfortunately, with road racing, you've got to have a clear mind, and you've got to build it. And one of the things you learn at the TT is you've got 2 weeks of riding. So if I went out tomorrow night and I did 125 last year, and I try and do even just 125 tomorrow night, where am I going to go the next night? Where I'm happy coming in at maybe 120, 121, make a change, 122. So that comes senior race day, you beat, you set your fastest lap, and you come in, you take your helmet off, and you say, right, that was the best I could do on the day with what I have, and I'm happy. I feel like I left here last year with unfinished business, because my dad sat and we went through the PC, and he said to me, your ideal sector time, there's a 127 here, and it's easier said than done. I mean, Peter Hickman's ideal is probably 139 and a half, if you string it together. So my goals for this year is, I want to beat what I did last year, and I want to finish higher. I want to get those results up, and 6 starts, 6 finishes. Obviously, the Super Twin race at the Northwest, I finished 8th. At the beginning of the week, I was just hoping to qualify, make the start. And Mervyn White, who's the organizer, he said, AJ, as long as you make the grid, we don't care. So in my mind, I'm already going, guys, these are road races. They've been coming at 30 years. If I can start 30th, I can learn from there. Yes. And I came in in 8th place. So if I could finish, if my guys around me can enjoy it. We can have a safe 2 weeks at the TT, give as much exposure as possible to the sponsors, to the people that made it happen, and then we do something that to show that coming from South Africa, we can, get involved with the top gun of road racing.
Yeah, that's a win. That's a big win in itself, as you said, showcasing that. Alex van der Berg's got a good question here. What tires and compounds do you ride with in the TT, and are tires open to all riders? It's a good question. We know with superbike racing, yeah, you got your whatever, your Pirelli, your Metzeler, your Dunlop, whatever sticker on your bike. Doesn't always mean you're getting the same tire as that front runner. Is it like that in the TT? Or if you're on Metzelers, are you getting the same Metzelers as or Dunlops as Peter Hickman or Dean Harrison and those kind of guys get, or is there a kind of cheaper option you have to go with?
So it is a bit of a mafia, in motorcycle racing. Tires is your number one advantage. So the better the tire, it's bolt on time. I've run Dunlops here before. I've run Metzelers. So basically, tires are open. To your question, you can run any tires you want. But the tire of the TT to run is either a Dunlop or a Metzeler. And unfortunately, you don't really get the access to the Dunlops that you'd like. We try to do it through Dunlop South African Home, and that didn't materialize. And we now riding on Metzelers. And basically, you have the option. I'll buy my tires when I get to the track. I go up to the Metzeler tire thing, and there's a list you can choose. They've changed the rules now where on the big bikes we're allowed to run slicks, whereas before you would run on the Super Sport, the Super Twin, and the Super Stock race. We would run a cut slick, like your Metzelers K1s and your K2s, and then on the big bike you could run the slicks. Now you do have the option of your normal K1 and your normal K2 that you get from home. That we in South Africa know. But then they also have, it's a dual compound tire. And especially for a place like the Northwest, where you're in the middle of the tire for so long, they start to come apart. So it's a custom-made tire. So it's got a very hard center, a dual compound, and then it's got softer shoulders and a softer edge, so that it can generate the heat. Because of the high speed, yes, there's places where you quite leaned over far, but a lot of the TT and that you're rolling, and to generate that heat, you run a softer compound on the edges. The boys at the top, some of the top guys they might, especially at a place like the Northwest where there's only, I think there's one right-hand corner. So they'll run a lot softer on the right-hand side to what they run on the left-hand side. And an important thing that I found very interesting, which took me 3 or 4 years to learn, and only when you start working with the bigger teams do the suspension guys they inform you learn from it. But different tires ride the bumps different. So if you watch when a Peter Hickman or a Michael Dunlop goes over a jump, always watch the back tire and watch the shape. If your tire's a hard tire off the road, it's more of a bouncing ball. So it makes it harder to ride, where a softer construction tire makes the bike ride the jumps better.
Like when you play squash.
Like a squash ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we and like I want to say we don't really get access to the proper tires, but I also feel at the same time I'm not doing 135 mile an hour. So whether I do have that tire or not, I don't think there's much benefit for me. And price is a factor. I do look at the cheaper tires, because like the cut slicks I'm running would be a tire that did 128 mile an hour lap 3 or 4 years ago. Or we can't use a tire older than 3 years. Okay, it's in the rules. They today in the briefing they also told us if the date on the tire is older than 3 years, you can't use it for safety. But if I go back and go on treaded tires, they did 130 mile an hour lap. Until I reach that 130 mile an hour lap, you can give me a qualifying tire. So tires are important, and it's more just for construction, for how they ride the bumps.
In terms of, you were talking about the challenges you had last year with the bike, with the tire changing, the battery, and that. How much more prepared and what changes have you been able to make to the bike and the setup to try and iron out those couple of little problems?
So chassis wise, we've got a couple of things to improve and try on. I'm also very fortunate that this paddock, you can ask anyone, road racing, they don't lie to you. So if a guy comes to you and says, I go through this corner flat, he goes through there flat. You won't, people know, they don't come and tell stories. And I've got a very good friend in Mark Arnie that runs a company called Motorshocks. And he's sort of the K-Tech man for Ireland. And he's involved with a lot of the road racing teams. And I met him in 2018 when I rode for Johnny Burrows. And, he's guided me and he's helped me. And he gives me a lot of suspension help and setup every time I go racing. So we arrived here day before yesterday, and the suspension I'm running now is the same suspension I used at the TT last year, which was K-Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't used it since last year. And when we got here, there was a bit of an issue in getting the suspension across, so it arrived late. And when we opened the forks, we'd lost a bit of gas pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked the phone up, I rang Arnie, and he just said to me, he says, listen, go out tomorrow night, ride the bike, and I'll service them for you tomorrow night after the session so that you have fresh suspension. So I've got a lot of help from him, and if it wasn't for his guidance, you sort of work it out yourself. So the chassis, I'm very comfortable with the chassis. And then, we changed the fuel cap last year. I borrowed a fuel tank to buy a tank here. So we run 24 liters is the maximum capacity you're allowed. A standard BMW tank's 18 liters. So last year, to buy a tank of Alpha Racing was 97,000 Rand. It was strong money. So same thing, a couple of phone calls, Brian Bontequin and got hold of a skill suitor. Mm-hmm. And next minute, they'd arranged me a tank from the World Endurance team from BMW. And the problem we had last year was the tank was perfect. However, the World Endurance guys use a different filling system where they run the two fuel caps that you push down. Where the TT, you run one fuel cap, and it's a gravity-fed machine. So we didn't want to damage the tank that we'd been lent, because then I'd have to pay for it. So we made up an adapter plate between the two fuel caps, which was a funny thing, because when we pushed the bike into Parc Fermé, all the top teams thought we had this UFO, undeveloped system. Meanwhile, it was just a piece of aluminium about that thick that used to rub a hole in my chest every night, And what we did, the only cap that we could find was a screw cap. And when we came into the pit stop, we'd come in and it would cross thread. Yeah. Now you've crossed that jams. So we've changed the fuel cap. We've found the cap that works. We've changed the wheel spaces in the bike. We've got captive spaces. Hakoki is a company in South Africa that do these very trick knocker guns. And we'll now run a knocker gun on the back axle to get the nut in, get the nut out. So we've changed that. Jim Sinclair, my very good friend from the UK, who from the first time I ever went to the UK to race, he was my UK dad. He's helped me, he's worked on my bikes. So he's our fuel man. And he's had a year to improve his eyes so that when that fuel goes in, he knows how close he's going to get the fuel cap to the top. So it's all those little things. The battery, we've rewired the battery. We've got the right battery, so the bike fires straight away. I'm trying to think what else did we battle with. Oh, the fairings. So in the senior last year, we broke two exhausts. We broke a subframe. The clock bracket broke off. So when we got back to South Africa, we went to go see Neil from Powersport that does all the rotor pipes. And we sat with him, and he's built us he's given us, there's a pipe on the bike, and he built us two more pipes of spares. We went from titanium to stainless, and he's put extra hooks and extra lockings on so that we can brace the pipe a lot better to stop them breaking, because it's just from bottoming out. Yes. So we fixed that. The belly pan was an issue last year where you hit the belly pan. So you're never going to not hit the belly pan, but what we do is we fiberglass a bit of 1 mil aluminium plate in the bottom of the belly pan, so that when it smashes, it's not just fiberglass. It's it's got something hard to hit. And before we left, I went and Michael Niemann made us a set of fairings, and we asked him to just make the base a lot thicker. So I've got a Kevlar base in the belly pan, and we've got a bit of plate. So basically, we're building the bike to be stronger physically, to take the vibrations, to take the bumps than last year. And hopefully all those things all add up.
Yeah, I think they will. Like you said, it's practice make perfect. And last year was certainly the first time you taking your own bike over a fully kind of South African prep team. It was always going to be a learning curve. There was no doubt about it. The fact that you were able to go faster while learning and putting up with all these things, that's what kind of puts the glimmer in my eye for this year. If we get good conditions, it can only get better. So let's wait and see what happens there. But another big thing that we've spoken about, you going, to MotoGP, and Charmaine Hareth. I hope we're saying it right. Charmaine, thank you so much for joining us. Charmaine Fullion, always great to have her. And I'm sorry for the late notice on this video. As I said, I was playing football with my boy, and I need Dom to start being my, helping me with things as well, because then stuff will get done. But apart from KJ Monyonyane and everything you do back in South Africa with the Short Circuit Series, your own, baby AJ, well, no, he's not so baby anymore. He's now foster AJ on his Pee-wee and helping a Short Circuit racing ZX10, Red Square ZX10 Masters Cup or Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup, doing all these things. You probably do more spannering than you do riding at the moment, which is a little bit concerning in terms of you're going to go ride the Isle of Man TT. But before this, you were talking about you were also recently at Paul Ricard in France. And a couple of weeks ago, so I work for Zero Motorcycles here in the UK, and my country manager, Dale Robinson's a very well-known, connected kind of guy here. We went up to SCH to kind of do some scouting for some technical support that we're doing. And he's, let me take you past my friend's place. I've managed to organize this private tour, around my friend's place. There we land up at Team Classic Suzuki at Nathan's. Now, I'd met Nathan a couple of years ago through Dale Robinson's track day that he did out at Knock Hill. But, met him again, introduced myself again, brought you into the conversation, Danny Webb, the whole SATT Classic thing. So we had a real great conversation. But in this unknown location here in the UK, walk in and there's a Lucky Strike 250 Suzuki, Kevin Schwantz 500 Grand Prix bike, the Pepsi bike, the Lucky Strike bike just lined up there, a John Hopkins MotoGP bike. And you're like, but hang on, this is just like little shop warehouse thing in the middle of nowhere. And there's a Scott Russell kind of signed helmet, a Kevin Schwantz used helmet. Then you go upstairs, there's even more. Anyway, just this motorcycle heaven. I did a video on Motor Rider World's YouTube channel and put it up there. But then I was talking to him and he's like, Nathan, he's like, oh yeah, AJ is coming to drive my van across to Paul Ricard. He's spannering there in the endurance for me and this. And I'm going, for God's sake, when does this guy sleep? I know the challenges, as you said, the time of being away from your family and, being a father, never mind the business, just being a father and a soon-to-be husband and having a partner. That in itself is hard work and time consuming. And I sat there thinking, is this guy serious? AJ is seriously going to be driving this van across to Paul Ricard, macking there in a World Endurance, and then doing the Northwest, and then doing KJ, and then doing the TT. I take my hat off to you, but tell us that experience of being involved with that classic, the Team Classic Suzuki, spannering in that World Endurance at Paul Ricard, because it seems to be quite a big thing. Bjorn Esmond raced in the Phase 2 racing team. I think he was on the podium, but as South Africans, we're not exposed to that. In the UK here, I'm all starstruck by it, but it's like second nature, these kind of big championships and these kind of things. But that also seemed like something, a nice bucket list moment and a once in a lifetime opportunity.
No, Rob, it was, and that was the way I saw it. When Nathan and them were over at Kyle Army, we were just having a conversation about, what are you doing between Northwest and the TT? And it's about a week and a half you have to kill. And for me to fly, the flights in that were mad. So for me to fly to the Northwest, fly back home, and then fly to, to the UK was just going to work out too expensive. So I said to Nathan, I need something to do. I need a bit of work, or I can't sit still. So he said, well, he's heading down to Paul Ricard. They got a 4-hour endurance round on these classic bikes, and he's going by himself. He could do the set of hands. So it was actually funny because I flew out of Belfast the Sunday night. It was late. It was midnight or something. I flew Belfast to London. Nathan fetched me. I stayed at his house the Sunday. And I'll be honest with you, I just thought, exactly what you say. You walk into that warehouse and you can't explain it, the RG500s. And it's all things that, you were brought up with. I had a 1989 RS125 this was a Grand Prix bike, And it's not just an RG500, it's the one that Kevin Schwantz rode, or it's the one that Kenny Roberts won the world championship on. It's that specific bike, And so, when Nathan said I could come there and spend some time, for me, just being there and gaining that experience and learning. And, I like to learn all the time, because anything I can learn, I can take it back. And I run a bike shop. I can put it back into my shop, and, it's things to use. And So I flew back. So I actually was under the impression I was going to go there and polish a couple of wheels and, change a couple of tires. I mean, these are teams that are Classic Suzuki. If everybody knows, he's a proper, well-established, I want to say Grand Prix level team, And so I got to Nathan Monday. He sent me to go pick up some parts in a van. And obviously, me and directions, I grew up riding around racetracks where, you come past the same place every time. I left his house at, I think, 8 in the morning. I got back at 6 o'clock that night. I had no phone, I had nothing, and I got lost. So I sort of wasted a day just in the middle of England in random places. Tuesday, he left me in the workshop and he gave me the opportunity to build their spare bike, which was a GSX 1000 K1. So I sat there building this motorbike. Then Wednesday we loaded, and the only thing I really knew about Paul Ricard was, I don't know if you remember the first MotoGP PlayStation game that came out. You could race 500 and you could race Paul Ricard. That's what I knew. So the fact that I had the correct visas, having been traveling with KJ, it allowed me that I could take this opportunity and go and experience Paul Ricard and work for this, in a race team. So I spoke to Lee Dutton. He was with me, and Lee and Mark McSkimming, they were with me at the Northwest. And Lee's like, no, man, you go across the channel crossing into France, and it's about a 3-hour drive. So, I was 8 hours away. So we jumped in the car. We left Nathan's place at 3 in the morning on Wednesday. Wednesday, we left Nathan, got to the channel, made the crossing, and it was another 10 hours across. It was an 850-mile drive. It was a Cape Town drive, 1,200 and something kilometers across France. And it meant a long drive. And we got there, and the riders were Bob Collins and another rider by the name of Tim Neve. And Bob I actually knew from British Championship days. When I raced there, he's a good guy. A couple of the South African guys know Bob. He's a crazy Londoner that he sells Bridgestone tires in London. And it was a funny thing because I raced against Bob, and Bob didn't really know that I could hold a 10-mil spanner, And we got there and we set up this our pit and the bikes. We looked apart and everything was fantastic. And Nathan came to me and he said, AJ, this bike is your beauty. I need you to run this bike. And I still thought, well, what do you mean? He said, I know if you, and I still asked, how did you trust me in having the opportunity to literally spin spanners, change wheels? We had to do an engine swap. We had a lot of things to do. And it makes sense in this structure where in South Africa, you drive to the track, you offload, you build your own bike, you change your own tires, you fuel your own bike. And in a team of this caliber, you have your 2 riders that ride the motorbike. We had 2 guys that did fuel. Nathan's job was to oversee things, and he was watching your fuel consumption. He was watching the pit boards. He was, his wife. His wife was there at 8 o'clock at night holding this pit board up. And he just said, if I'm worrying about that, I'd hate to, if you have to work on that bike and I throw you in the deep end, you're under the pressure to make sure that job's done right. So, I was quite proud of the fact that he could give me that opportunity. And we went out Thursday. They did one session in the day. Both riders went out, and I think we were quickest or second quickest. Then we went out for the first lap of night practice, and the engine had a bit of an issue, and it went kaboom. So came into the pits, and in the heat of the moment, we had to sort of build everything across to the next bike. So myself and Nathan got stuck in, and we literally, Rob, built everything except the frame and swing arm into this GSX 1000. Got the bike finished, went through the next day to the track, and they called it a warm-up, but it was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you had your warm-up session, and you go straight into the race. The race started at 6 o'clock, I think, and it was till 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock till 10. It was 2 hours in the day and 2 hours in the night. Okay. And about an hour before we were due to go out for warm-up, we had a brand new engine in this bike, and it was a fully rebuilt, transferred to the spare bike. And the FIM stewards came and told us we're not allowed to race this bike. And the reason behind it was when we did scrutineering the day before, because we hadn't finished the spare bike in the wiring and that, we didn't scrutineer it because it was a spare bike for parts. Mm-hmm. But the frame hadn't been scrutineered. So they wouldn't allow us to start the race. So Nathan went, sat, and you have to sit. It's mental the way the French Federation work is. You've got to sit in front of this board of directors, and they have a vote. And basically, they said they didn't want to budge. They told us this bike must be changed back now. We'd miss the session, and we'd go straight into the race. on a new motorbike, new engine, untested, you know, and Nathan stood his ground, and eventually they gave us they allowed us to go out in the warm up, check the bike, and but we had from 2 o'clock till before the race that evening to build everything straight back again. You know, so the guys went out, they did 2 laps, they had a slight issue with the clutch slipping, so they didn't really get a full session. So the bike was untested. And we hammered it, you know, same thing. We rebuilt the bike, swapped everything back across, front forks, back shock, yokes, even the brake lines, the wiring harness. And we finished the bike with about an hour to go before the race. And we started third. And I think within the first hour, we got to the front. And we were actually racing with Bjorn and them in their phase 1 endurance team. You know, we were neck and neck with them. And towards the end, we managed to win this race by, I think, 1 minute and 12 seconds. So it was such a cool thing that with all the struggles and all the behind the scenes, we ended up winning the race as well on an untested bike. And literally, that bike didn't miss a beat. The engine, no oil leaks, no, you know, just things you would like to eliminate before this race. So yeah, that was, for me, it was special. And then obviously the same weekend was a classic celebration. So they had bikes there, they had RG 500s, they had CZ 750s. And so just having that opportunity to see those things, and, you know, I was sending my dad videos every 2 minutes because that's his era. You know, that's where he grew up. And my dad, you know, he had a 250 GP bike himself. So we finished Saturday night, 2 in the morning was the race. Sunday morning, they did parades. We left there at 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. I drove first, and we literally hit it. You know, we drove back to Calais. We managed to get on the ferry straight away instead of a 4 hour. We sort of, like South Africans do, we winged it. We got on early, and I was back in London by 1 in the morning. So we left at 1 in the afternoon, got to England at 1 in the morning. So it was literally a 12-hour stint that we hit the 1,100 Ks. Monday, unpacked the van Tuesday, reloaded the van Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, and then I jumped in that van and I drove it up to Leeds, which was about a 2-hour drive. I had to pick up Jim, had something to eat at Jim's house, myself and Jim jumped, and then we had to drive to Heysham, which was also about another hour and a half, 2 hours. Got to Heysham ferry. We were on the 2 o'clock in the morning ferry. Got the van on, went upstairs, and then the ferry was a 4-hour crossing. So we got into Douglas just at 5, 6 o'clock, drove the van across, and then obviously the TT trip started from there. You know, our crates, Skynet, you know, fantastic. What worked with Skynet is they got the bikes, they picked them up from Lacquer Racing, from my address in Edenvale, took them to the airport, put them on a plane, flew them to Heathrow, arranged the truck to pick them up at Heathrow, which then drove the 5 hours to Heysham, put it on the boat, and they literally delivered the crates in the paddock for us, you know, which is a service you can't ask for. You know, that was fantastic. So by the time we got there, we were able to build our pit and, you know, start offloading the crates. So it has. I've done some mileage, but, you know, it's experience you can't buy. You know, and, yes, it's hard being away from home, and, you know, I'm on the phone to my son, to Dom, every night. It was funny because you drive from London up to Leeds, and every second services, petrol station, I stop in there, have a wee, jump on the Wi-Fi, make a phone call, maybe do an email, make a payment for the workshop, and you keep driving. You know, so it has been hard, you know, but I'll never regret it because it's an opportunity. Seeing these RG 500s, you know, you can't pay for that.
Yeah, you can't. That Team Classic Suzuki is impressive, and that was just the one warehouse. And then the owner actually says, "Oh, come to my other place," and he takes us to a whole nother storage unit full of BSB. But I mean, it's kid in candy store stuff, and like you said, getting to live these kind of things. You know, that's one big thing being here in the UK that you could never do in South Africa, because we were so far away from being exposed to that. Whereas here in the UK, you know, I go to bike meets and I'm walking around with my tongue out of my mouth and drooling, and, you know, it's just second nature. Yeah. So that's one thing I'm really enjoying about, yeah, in the UK. It's just that the motorcycle scene, yeah, it's just endless. It's absolutely endless. It's incredible. AJ, James Dent, no one can keep up with you. James is saying that maybe you should go traveling with him into MotoGP. You could keep up with him, but I promise you, no one can keep up with James Dent. I don't know what he's on. AJ, I think it's a very good thing that you're sponsored by MPL. to give you all this energy, because I don't know where you find it. Paul Jacobs from Honda South Africa is on here. That's another a company that's supported you. I know that from the WhatsApp group Honda South Africa. So big thanks to them. Arata, as you mentioned, Niels and them. So yeah, it's fantastic that you're getting all the support. I've loved the stories. You know, we get a glimpse of it on your Facebook channels and Beam and what we put out there and stuff, but it's not quite the same as hearing it, you know, come straight from your mouth. And I think it's going to be very interesting. I think it's exciting. I hope the weather just plays ball, because that can really turn 2 weeks of a great experience into a real nasty experience. So fingers crossed that you get the weather. And everyone that's commented here down the side, AJ, just, you know, basically applauding you for what you're doing, not only with the TT, but with KJ, with everything that you're involved in South African racing. You know, it's great. You're one of those. There's quite a few of them. Well, there's quite a few of them in South Africa that, you know, the Martinez's, the Lourdes, the Ricky Morais's, yourself, your dad, your mom, who's just always been, you know, Tracy's always been the lady of motorcycle racing. You know, I remember doing prize giving with her when I was growing up, you know. So it's great that you're doing what you're doing. I wish you nothing but success and safety. Obviously, safety is the first thing that we want to see. And I do. You know, I like to always kind of confess that no one's as cool and hardworking, as strong as I am, and no one will ever be. But I must take my hat off to you, AJ. I think what you do is absolutely incredible. You and Dom and AJ as a family, your dad, your mom, just you as a united family, what you do for motorcycle racing in South Africa and the world and worldwide. When I saw you with KJ, I thought, you know, KJ couldn't have asked for anyone better in his corner. And I'm glad that, you know, I can have my little piece of telling your story and getting it out there. And yeah, long may it continue. And again, just you have mine and the countries and everyone here and so many more people's full support in this TT. And just do your best, be safe, and just yeah, we're with you all the way, man.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you very much for that. And just one other thing, just I see you mentioning Paul Jacobs. You know, Honda South Africa did. They got behind me. I'm riding that Honda, that CBR 600, and that's what I rode at the Northwest. And, you know, if it wasn't for you guys, Motor Rider World, and for Beam Productions, you know, the amount of people that helped us and came up last minute. You know, I tried to do 1 or 2 social media posts, and the problem is, and I do it every time, is I always forget someone, because there's so many people that have got involved. And honestly, if I forget people, I really, really apologize, because it's not intended. But there's so much happening, and you know, that's why I need to talk to yourself. And, you know, I've got the WhatsApp group with Garrett, with Sean, and I put stuff on there. And you can ask him. We put a list of all the sponsors, and then 10 minutes later, I add another one, because I think, shit, man, I didn't put that one on. So please, guys, if I really do, I'm sorry. I struggle with the social media. You know, riding a motorbike for me is sort of my limit. But you know, once again, thank you to Honda South Africa, to all my sponsors, to Rob, to Motor Rider World, and you know, something, I don't know if you ever get the credit for it, Rob, but you do these channels and you do these videos. And, you know, we had this chat last year at the TT as well. And I watch the way you know, I used to laugh and go, yes, Rob, you're so mad for Brad. And you are mad for Brad, because you realize what he's dealing with behind the scenes. And, you know, and I want to ask the guys at home, the South Africans that watch racing and our local races, and everyone's got Facebook. It's 2024. Guys, please, you need to support these races. And whether you support me or not, it's not about me. Please don't think that. But this MotoGP paddock, what I've realized, the Richeys, the KJs, Brad, Darren, Dino, Matthew, Cam. The other day, I tried to actually put a post up to boost these riders, and I forgot about Dino. And Dino's a good friend of mine. And he sent me a message, and he's like, yo, thanks for forgetting about me. And, you know, please, guys, the South Africans, they've swallowed a pill. Everybody's fighting for that opportunity to do something there, and it's just that little bit harder for the South Africans. So if everybody can just have that positive post and give these guys a boost, I promise you now, they might not say it on social media, but I've seen it firsthand what it does for them. You know, give them that push, give them the support they need.
Absolutely, I second that to the end of the earth. So yeah, AJ, just again, everyone's just coming in here and just wishing you all the best. We'll follow you. We'll hopefully catch up. You know, I was added to that WhatsApp group of yours, and I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, because Amy nearly threw the phone at me last night because it just bing, bing, bing. I'm already on 16 million groups, but it's great to see that. We'll keep everyone as updated as we possibly can. We've got Greg Maloney going there as well. He'll keep us updated. But yeah, let's stay in touch. Let's hopefully catch up with you during the TT sometime, if not certainly after the TT. And we can hopefully be talking about a 127, 128 mile an hour lap. But hopefully the main goal is just bring it home, be safe, celebrate it with your beautiful family. And Michael White, good luck, Tom Gibbon-Horns. Michael, it's sad that you're not joining us this time. But, you know, when I saw Michael's post go out the other day, I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. There was a reason Michael wasn't supposed to be there this year. So give it time. I know it's a hard pill to swallow. You know, we just want to go, especially as bike racers. You know, you crash, your arms hanging off, and you want to get back on that bike and go, and you don't want to miss these opportunities. But things happen for a reason, Michael. So just try and be patient. It's good that you've got someone like AJ doing the groundwork and opening these channels for you. You know, we know that Sheridan Moraes did that so many years ago for us, kind of open that channel for South Africans. And yeah, just keep doing what you do, AJ. It's phenomenal, and it's very inspirational, as Nobody's Business on YouTube says. Yeah, what an awesome guy. Very inspirational. So just keep flying the flag, and yeah, wishing you all the best. I'm going to be watching that Facebook page and the TT updates like an absolute hawk to see where our main man is.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you very much, and keep watching that WhatsApp group, because it's gonna beep a lot more. But yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you for all the messages. I do get them. Just funny enough, I'm not really on Wi-Fi a lot, you know, as you're bouncing around. So when I do get the Wi-Fi, I try to reply to everyone, and if I do reply day or so later, yeah. I'm sorry. Dom will be in the next 2 days, so she can get back to replying to a lot of people, as everybody knows, even at the work at home, you know, like a racing, people phone and it's Dom. So I think that laughing face that Dom put on the chat earlier was because she knows that we've been here since Wednesday and no one's cooking food. You know, Dom needs to get you so we can get the shopping done, we can get the food cooked. So yeah, Rob, thank you very much. Thank you to Motorrad World, and let's catch up, you know, through race week. We can have a few updates.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, thank you to everyone for tuning in. I know it was late notice. As always, the support from you guys is amazing, and all your comments and support on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, it's much appreciated. And have a great week further. We've got a bank holiday Monday tomorrow, so I'm enjoying the day off. AJ, you got some riding hopefully to do. And again, just big thank you to everyone. And until the next time, until Tuesday night, we'll talk MotoGP, and then hopefully soon we'll catch up with AJ again. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye.